you should never commute. And the reason they say you should never commute is because there is value in your time, and you essentially are wasting your time to commute. You are choosing to give up that value. And for some people, it's really important to stay where they are and remain planted and commute.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
E-Pilot, it's another solo show with me, Nick Fialka. Welcome to Ready for Pushback. I'm stoked you're here. Is this your first time here? If so, welcome. I'm glad you decided to listen to this one first. And it's a pretty good choice to listen to this one first because this is probably the question that I get most often. When somebody calls me, there's a high likelihood that they are going to ask, what company should I choose? What airline should I go to? What should I do for my family? How do I make this decision? Let me give you an example. The other day I was driving and my phone rang. There's a person I haven't talked to in quite a long time. And he said to me, hey, I have a question for you. I am thinking about jumping ship from American Airlines to Delta. And I was a little stunned. This guy is on year 2 at American, and he wants to know, should he go to Delta? He was nervous about the contract negotiations, whether it was going to actually pan out or not. He was nervous about the company's debt and the service on that debt. He lived in North Carolina and had a really easy trip to where he flew from, but he was ready to commute to Atlanta. He wants to know, should I go? I have another buddy who's a captain at Southwest Airlines. And been there more than 10 years, man. 10 years at the airline. And he is considering jumping ship to go to FedEx. Why? It's a little bit the money. It's more the wide body flying and the international opportunities than it is anything else. He loves the company, thinks it's totally awesome, really enjoys it, but he thinks that it fit his lifestyle better at FedEx. I've got people with Delta and United and American and Southwest and FedEx and UPS CJOs, right? A lot of people with those FedEx and UPS CJOs, right? They have job offers for these cargo carriers, but they are at other major airlines until FedEx and UPS decide they're starting to hire again. They're waiting in a pool. They want to fly cargo, but cargo doesn't want them on property just yet. They are managing their training and their upgrades and the economy and all those things. So they're just got this pause going on pilot hiring, at least right now at the point where we're recording this. But then you've got people that could be a captain at Delta Airlines in less than 6 months. You've got people that could go to American Airlines and have great seniority really, really fast. You've got people that can live in a really fun domicile going to Southwest. And should you choose a larger seniority list or a smaller seniority list? What's the likelihood for furlough at this company? What about single pilot operations? What about the future? All these things, right? How much money are you going to leave on the table if you have a job offer at a cargo carrier, but then you decide to stay at the major, the Delta, Pax carrier, United, Southwest, et cetera, et cetera? These are all really, really tough questions. And we talk through it. We chat through it. My buddy at American that wanted to leave, the grass is always greener. Everybody has this fear of missing out, especially once contracts start moving and really plugging away. People get anxious and people get nervous. And you got to just take a breath, and you've got to sit back and really impartially evaluate your life without the emotion, right? If you have multiple job offers at multiple companies and you're trying to decide what company you should choose, you've got to make that decision only based on the information you have now. Not what could happen, not what might happen, what you have right now. Because today's darling will not be tomorrow's darling. Today's Delta will not be tomorrow's Delta. Today's, not hiring at FedEx will change. It will come back around. They're going to open the doors. It's an awesome place to go. The ebb and flow of contracts, solvency of companies, bankruptcies, black swan events, right? Black swan events are things like September 11th or COVID. They tend to happen about every 10 years. You'll hear people in the industry just kind of whisper about every 10 years something bad's going to happen. And when you look at the history of aviation, plus or minus a few years, like there's always this big downturn. And those big downturns, they cause big disruptions in the industry. And it makes it really difficult to anticipate what's going on. There are a lot of different things that change in this industry. And sometimes you're going to have a better contract. Sometimes you're going to have a worse contract. The pattern bargaining thing will come back around, and you've just got to keep yourself motivated and think positive thoughts, man. Like that's what you got to do. And basically, I'll tell you this, seniority is king. Where do you live? Commuting from one base to another is always miserable. My friends at the 21.5 show, they always say that you should never commute. And the reason they say you should never commute is because there is value in your time, and you essentially are wasting your time to commute. You are choosing to give up that value. And for some people, it's really important to stay where they are and remain planted and commute. For our family, I commuted for a long time, switched over to not commuting and living in base, and Lord have mercy, there's so much more opportunity there. It's so much better. So I highly recommend that kind of thing. So, what is your time worth? If you're commuting, think about this, right? If you have a 2-hour commute, you have to get there 1 hour before the flight leaves. Well, to get there an hour before the flight leaves, you have to park in the employee parking lot. Is it a 45-minute trip from the employee parking lot? And then once you get to wherever you're commuting to, think about the time it takes to wait for your sequence to begin, because you don't land and immediately start your sequence. You probably have a few hours there you've got to burn. And then you have to consider how much time is it going to take you to get home at the end of that? Another 2-hour commute home, and then another 45-minute drive to the employee parking lot, and then another 30-minute drive home or whatever. You're talking hours and hours and hours and hours. If you're making $250 an hour, that adds up, and it's 10 hours, man, you just wasted $2,500. So could you live in base and pick up an extra flight instead of commuting? You would make way more money. So commuting, when you are picking your airline, whether you're going to commute or not commute, I lived in one town where there was a headquarters of a major airline. And I commuted out of the airport that was the base for that airline all the way to another major city to my airline that I actually flew for. And so I chose not to fly for this one airline, and I commuted right past them for a year. And but I really enjoyed my airline. I love the company that I fly for, and it's super duper fun. And I would never change a thing. So we moved our family in base. That's how important it is to us, is to live close to work, because I get to have more time with my family. And that is what is important to me. What company speaks to you, right? What company has programs or a culture or something that is relevant to who you are and turns your light on. I think about Southwest a lot with this one. Their focus is feeling the love and really providing a pleasant experience, the happiness that you see in the pilot group and in the flight attendants and in the gate agents. That is a place that lives and breathes culture. And it is a really, really cool place. And if that kind of thing speaks to you, and it doesn't matter how much money you make, because you're going to have a great time at work. And that is really important. So if I've got multiple CJOs and I am concerned or worried or thinking about which company I should join, I always think about this: which training starts first? Because the training that starts first is the training that's going to give you a seniority number. And that is key. I honestly recommend starting at the first place that lets you, because if you start tomorrow at whatever airline and the world stops, at least you have a seniority number. So after the furloughs are done, you can come back on property. But if you were going to wait 2 extra weeks to start at a different airline and then something happens, that's it. They don't have to honor that CJO. That is a conditional job offer, conditional. And the condition must be that they are hiring pilots. And if they are not, then you are not going to get a job. So if you want to move later and go to the next step, like at least when the music stops, you have that seniority number. But if you want to pick up and move on to another company, go for it, man. Just be careful. Make sure you know what you're getting into. If you choose to wait to start training at a different company, understand what risk you're putting forward. My regional, right? During COVID, they furloughed deep. And those thinking of switching to another place, they didn't get their chance, but at least they had a seniority number, right? The regional folks, don't chase the money, guys. Regional folks, if you are looking at a regional airline, go to the one that's most commutable, most easy for you to get to work, to get to the base, because they're all just about the same. They're all about going to give you the time you need at about the same rate, unless you go to whatever their senior base is, if there is such a thing anymore. You want to be on reserve as short a time as possible and then get flying. This is not your end all be all. Everybody's paying big bucks to regional airline pilots, and it's all about a wash. You might see somebody advertise like, oh, we pay the most, or oh, we pay the highest captain's pay, or oh, we pay the highest bonus. Everybody pays the highest something. And they're going to try to get you to stay because they're trying to keep their company afloat. And you are trying to get your time to get to whatever your dream job is, right? So if you're already at one, stay at it. One is not better than the other. If you want to switch, I talk to people all the time that want to switch regional airlines. Think about this, guys. All right. Let's say you switch regional airlines. You've got to go through a week of indoc. You've got to go through a couple weeks, like let's say a month of sims. And then you got to do the initial operating experience. And then you're probably going to be on reserve. So you're probably 3 to 6 months before you really can hold a line and start flying. So you've basically flushed 3 to 6 months worth of flying down the toilet. If you are already flying at a regional airline and that regional airline is not going to go bankrupt at any moment, then it behooves you. I mean, if you're knocking out 70 hours a month, that could be like 400 hours that you put yourself behind. So once you go to a major, that 6 months that you're behind, that's 1,200 seniority numbers. At the end of your career, that 6 months that you're behind, that could be almost $400,000 that you're not getting, depending on how old you are when you got there. When it's time to choose the company that you're going to go to, and you're having a hard time figuring it out, start your pro-con list. Sit down with the people in your life that are important and come up with that pro-con list. The different things that make things great or not so great or whatever it is, run it by those people and stay informed about the industry. Be deliberate, be smooth, don't be rash. Think about my friend that was thinking about leaving American for Delta. He was really amped up and really American's union sent out an email to all the pilots saying, hey, maybe you should consider going to Delta. And man, he was like, oh, I should consider going to Delta. And he called me right up, dude, should I consider going to Delta? Man, take a breath. Take a big breath because it's going to be okay. American's going to be around tomorrow and the next day. There's going to be a new contract. And if you have multiple CJOs and you're trying to pick and it just doesn't make sense, well, then you're just going to have to pick one. Get your pro-con list, get it together. And then once you get there, love it. Love it. Love all of it. Be positive. Be a change for good. Be somebody who they look at and they're like, man, that guy drinks purple. He loves being at FedEx. That gal, she loves Southwest. That dude over there, he is United 110%. See that guy over there in the Delta hat? He loves wearing hats. Oh my gosh, he loves hats. Go there and love it and be the best at it and learn the jet and be good at the jet and listen to the people. And when they're wanking and complaining in the cockpit, like sit there and turn your Bluetooth on and just don't turn your Bluetooth on. You get in trouble. But do just sit back, relax, and know how lucky you are and how excited you should be for your future because it's going to be great. You've already made a good decision to become an airline pilot. So go do it and be good at it. Hey, before you jump out of here and go on to the next podcast, can I ask a big favor? Would you mind going over to your app that you're listening to this podcast on and give me a review? Give me a 5-star review if you love it. Give me a 1-star review if it totally sucks. Put a comment in there, something that is helpful. It helps me. It helps get the word out there. It helps people find the podcast, and that's super cool. If you don't do that, maybe you could just share the podcast with a friend. Tell a buddy who's trying to figure it out, trying to sort out this pilot dream of theirs and get a little bit further. That is super awesome as well. Last, if you don't do either of those two things, how about this? Find a way today to make yourself 1% better. Do that thing that you've been putting off. Put your foot forward, make movement, get yourself going, get that inertia that you need to succeed in this industry. So that's your choice. Leave a review, tell a friend, or make yourself better. Either way, it's all a good choice. And I'm super stoked you're listening, and I will see you on the next episode. The statements made on this show are my own opinions and do not reflect, nor are they under any direction from my employer.